Okay. I'm Kyle Christensen. I've been working with delicious food since I could remember, and in my chiropractic practice, I've been in practice now. This is my 41st year, so I've been doing it for a little while. And my practice has a big emphasis on helping people get healthy, and so that's what we want to do. And so tonight we're going to talk about fermented vegetables, specifically sauerkraut. Sauerkraut means what?
Sour cabbage.
Sour cabbage, right? And so there's been a lot of research done with sauerkraut, especially in recent years. And the yellow sheet is I'm going to be referring to that. We use something called lactic acid, and so lactic acid is what builds up in your muscles when you exercise too hard and you feel sore. But it's also something that's produced from a lactobacillus bacteria. And what we find is these bacteria are very, very beneficial to our health. There's something in our gut that we refer to as a microbiome. You've probably heard that term before. And what it is, it's the microbiological environment. Who's living there? And we have good microbes and we have bad microbes. And the reality of it is you need some of both, but you want a lot more of the good ones than the bad ones. And when there's a problem, things get out of balance. If you've heard of a term called SIBO, which stands for small intestine bacteria overgrowth, very common problem. And so what we find is if we could seed the gut with the good guys, we do better. The good guys keep the bad guys in check. You may have heard the term that everybody has cancer. We all have, out of the trillions of cells that we have in our body, there's some duds that are produced regularly. And if your immune system is strong and intact, it will look at the bad guys and say, you don't belong here, and gobble it up, and then it's gone. When the immune system gets weakened to a point that it can't, the bad overwhelms the good, and then we get sick. And so when we are exposed to an illness, and I spoke about this in our pandemic classes that we've had, there's three factors. One is the amount of exposure to a pathogen. And so if I've got a glass full of something that's nasty, Ebola, something like that, my exposure to that is going to be more troublesome or lethal than a cold virus, right? The second factor is the duration of the exposure. If I'm exposed for something for a long period of time, I'm more likely to get sick. And finally, we deal with what's called the virulence, or how nasty that bacteria is. If I have a choice of bacteria that I'm going to get exposed to or get sick with, I'm going to choose the less lethal one versus the other. And so if we have a greater balance or propensity of the good guys, we're going to offset the bad guys, and we're going to be healthier. And I could never do that. Maybe with let me just read the first paragraph. Sauerkraut is fermented cabbage produced through lactic acid fermentation, primarily by beneficial bacteria such as Lactobacillus plantarum, formerly Lactobacillus plantarum. Fancy names. Often you'll see written down, instead of Lactobacillus, they'll just put L, period. And that gives you, because it's a whole category thing. So you have the mesenteroids, you have the level Lactobacillus brevis, and a whole slew of other ones. These microbes create a tangy, probiotic-rich food that offers several evidence-based health benefits, largely tied to its live cultures, the fiber, the vitamins. You take cabbage, so you've got cabbage here, and you ferment it, and you create vitamin C. And so back in the old shipping days, they learned that the sailors would get scurvy. Scurvy is a vitamin C deficient disease causes your gums to bleed. Eventually, it will kill you. And they found that if they could provide vitamin C on the voyage, the sailors did better. The English sailors were referred to as, what, do you remember? Limeys. Why? Because they carried limes, because limes kept better than oranges and lemons, and they would suck on these limes for the vitamin C. But they also found that the cabbage did. Captain Cook, when he sailed to the Pacific, had apparently 36 kegs of sauerkraut that he took with him, stored in the hull of his ship. And finally, when they got back 36 months later, they were finally breaking into their last keg of sauerkraut. And so, again, it's a healthy, nutritious food. Vitamin C, vitamin K2. How many of you take vitamin D3 and K2? Well, K2 is found in here as well. Also, the fermentation causes short-chain fatty acids, and just a bunch of other chemical things. And so we know that it helps with the digestive tract. It helps even the pasteurized versus the unpasteurized. You know what the difference is? If you go to the grocery store and you're going to buy some sauerkraut, and you buy a jar or a can of sauerkraut, and it's not in the refrigerated section, it's been pasteurized. Pasteurized means that it heats it up, kills all the living things in it, so it's not going to rot and spoil, and it's you don't have a lot of that probiotic benefit. But they're finding that there is still benefit with that. We find that it helps support the immune system. 70% of our body's immune function is controlled or mediated by the digestive tract. You've heard the term that the gut is a second brain or a third brain. First brain, often we refer to the heart as a second brain, the gut as a third brain. Also, it's a major player in the immune system. It is shown to help with cardiovascular. It reduces blood sugar. It reduces cholesterol. Here's an interesting thing about cholesterol. High cholesterol is a result of inflammation. And so often what they will do is they'll let me use this analogy. So we're right next door to the fire station, and let's say me and Van, we like to chase fires. And so we hear the sirens going, we jump into our car and we follow them, and guess what? We see at every fire, there's firemen. So we know what causes the fire. It's firemen, because every time we find a fire, there's firemen there, and obviously that's got to be the cause. And so the problem, similar to cholesterol, we see high cholesterol, and we say the cholesterol is the firemen. They're there to put out the inflammation, and so we say, obviously, here's the problem. It's the cholesterol. Cholesterol is the fireman. That's the cause of the inflammation and the problem. So what do we need to do? We need to get rid of that cholesterol. We need to lower the cholesterol. And if you take away the firemen from the fire, what happens? The house is burned down, right? And so the point is if you're taking a statin drug, and I encourage you to do a little bit of homework and research on that if you are, but if you're taking a statin drug, you're getting rid of the firemen. And the inflammation, can rage on. So the issue with high cholesterol, and I'm off track already, the issue with high cholesterol is inflammation. So how can we lower the inflammation? Well, number one, stop eating so much sugar. Number two, there are some great natural things, such as turmeric, that will naturally lower the inflammation. And guess what happens if the inflammation goes lower? The cholesterol goes down. And so, but the fermented vegetables, the sauerkraut is good for that. We talked a little bit about the vitamin C here. Lots of good things. What I want to focus on is the back page. And this is some really new research that's come out. There was a company, and they made sauerkraut, and all of it turned to mush. If you've ever had bad sauerkraut or made sauerkraut and it turns to mush, something went awry. people say, how do you know if it's not good anymore? And it's like, oh, you know. You open the lid and you scoop it out and it just kind of slimes off your, it's like, I'm not even tempted to eat that. And so the point is there occasionally is something that will cause the sauerkraut to go bad. Well, this company had $1 million worth of sauerkraut go bad. And it was certified organic, and everything was great, and they tested the water, they tested everything that they could, and they couldn't figure it out until they tested the soil that the cabbage was being grown in, and they found that the farmers were using feed that was sprayed with glyphosate Roundup in the process of harvesting the grains, and that glyphosate contaminated the soil, which caused the cabbage to be deficient in certain nutrients, and that's what caused it to go bad. And so even though the cabbage was clean, they didn't have any problem there, but the glyphosate prevented certain minerals from being developed into the cabbage. And so what they found, though, is that
did they sue Monsanto? Sorry.
That's just going to lead me to another story. Anyways, and so so what they discovered is that there is a bacteria, this Lactobacillus plantarum, that will break down glyphosate and the residues of glyphosate. And so this farmer, he had like 15 gallons of the sauerkraut liquid, and so he put it in a sprayer and he sprayed his field, and it broke the glyphosate down into not glyphosate parts and inactivated it. And so they started doing some studies, and they found that the bacteria, the microbes in sauerkraut will in fact break down glyphosate. So they thought, okay, we know now there are tests you can do. So you could go in and do a lab test, and they'll test how much glyphosate you have in your system. And guess who has glyphosate in their system? Everybody, right? And so what we're finding is that the lactobacillus bacteria will break down the glyphosate in your body, which is super, super cool. I had a patient that came in the office a few weeks ago, had just returned from Italy on vacation. And she says, I hadn't seen her for a while. She says, I'm so gluten intolerant, I was just afraid. But I tried something in Italy and I did okay. And she says, by the time we were done, 2 weeks, I'd eaten so much bread, everything, and I didn't have a single problem until on the flight home, I ate the food on the airplane, and it made me sick again. The problem with our gluten intolerance, the majority of it is a result of the glyphosate that they spray on the wheat, and there's traces of it, and it messes up your gut. And then they say, oh no, but I had organic stuff and I still had a problem. And the answer to that is, well, because your gut was so messed up. And anyone who has gluten intolerance, it's not just gluten. It's dairy, it's gluten. I mean, and the list just keeps growing and growing. But my point here is that the sauerkraut can be a major player in healing the gut. And so that's what I want you to get out of this. So, order of business tonight. I've got some cabbage, and my wife and daughter were gracious little graders today. And so what we're going to do is we're going to, I think, probably kind of create a line, and it'll be a little bit chaotic, but we're preppers, we're used to chaos, right? And so the idea is, and the way I make sauerkraut, I think is unique, and it's so efficient. Classically, with sauerkraut, what you're going to do is you're going to get cabbage and your vegetables or whatever you're going to use, and you're going to put salt on it, and you're going to pound it, right? And so here I have a sauerkraut pounder, and that someone made for me. And you pound it, and you pound it, and pound it, and what this salt does to the cabbage is it tries to create homeostasis. And so there's more salt on the outside, less on the inside. It tries to balance that out, and the cabbage begins to exude the moisture, and you get this moisture. And what I find, instead of pounding it, and some say 30 to 45 minutes of pounding it, we don't do that anymore. But what we're going to do is we mix all the ingredients together. We're going to put it in a jar. We tamp it down tight, and then we pour a brine over it. And so a brine is simply salt and water mixed together. And so many of you will recognize what kind of salt this is, right? So we've got your Redmond salt. Here's a question for you. Why is Redmond salt red? Dirt, right? And so when we talk about a mineral supplement, what are minerals? It's dirt. It's rocks. And so in fact, when you put the salt in the water, you'll see the red kind of settle to the bottom. And is it bad for you? No, it's minerals. It's good for you. And so what we're going to do is we're going to mix the cabbage. I have some carrots here. We need those to be sliced. How many of you use one of these when you're slicing or using something? You know what these are?
Yes.
They're gloves. No.
Chainmail.
but it's like chainmail. It truly is. You cannot cut yourself with one of these. And so if you're going to be the one using the slicer, you have to wear one of these. I've had too many people cut themselves in my classes. And so if you're going to use a sharp instrument, you've got to have this not on the knife hand or the tool hand, but the hand that's in the way. And so what we do is we mix things. I've made 3 different types of sauerkraut. These sauerkrauts are 1 week old. I made them last Thursday, and so I've got your basic sauerkraut, which has just got the cabbage, some onions, and some carrots, and I put some caraway seeds. Some people don't like caraway seeds. The nice thing about making your own is you can put in it whatever you want. The other one that I made, the larger jar, I call it Scarborough Fare, because what herbs are in it? Parsley, sage, rosemary, and thyme, right? And then the third one is a Latin American one called Cordito, and it's a little bit spicy. And so you've got the option of doing one of those 3, and then we're just gonna pack them, and then we pour the water in, and then the magic thing that we use here is something called an airlock lid that I've been making for years, and what the airlocks are is it's just a thing that you put into the lid, and you put water in here, and it prevents it from going moldy or being contaminated. The water fills up in here as the cabbage and the vegetables ferment. They produce some carbon dioxide, which again wants to bubble up, and it allows it to escape, and the water seals it from that. And so we use the airlock lids on the cans that we have, and it works really nice. And the reason that I decided to have everybody make one tonight is because most of you won't do this if you didn't bring some home with you. But if you bring it home and you just sit it on your counter, you don't have to babysit, except occasionally as the water is excreted from the vegetables, it increases the volume in there. And so it can begin to overflow a little bit. And so what do? You open the lid, you pour some liquid out, and you put the lid back on.
Oh, that's really hard.
That's it, right? And then you could taste it throughout. And so I've got stuff here for you to taste, and I want you to try those if you can. I've got little cups and some tongs, and so just to get a taste of of the different ones. Some people don't like the spicy. You don't need to do it. It's not. Spice is relative, right? I mean, if my daughter and I go out and we get spice, it's spicy, and other people, don't like it. So, anyways. Yeah.
So I'm reading your recipes and it says like, this recipe has aniseed, ginger, nutmeg, clove. What's a general idea of how much of a spice to put into a quart jar with your?
Good question. And so for example. Thank you. So the question is, how much spice do you put in? Because the way I cook and the way some of you cook is we just kind of dump and pour and we get the feel. And then there are others that it's like, oh, no. How many grams of this? Or, do I do a quarter teaspoon or 3/4 of a quarter teaspoon? And so a lot of it is getting the feel. Now, the basic sauerkraut recipe is I'm using 1 green cabbage, okay? 1 green cabbage is gonna take a teaspoon, it shouldn't have capitalized that, a teaspoon of caraway seeds. And so you've got your caraway seeds, so not a lot. And so we grated up, how many cabbages did you guys do? 10? Okay, and the cabbages weren't real big. Yeah, and so if you're going to be making, let's say, a 1 quart jar, maybe half a teaspoon of spices. I put a little too many spices in the Scarborough Fair one, but that's just the way it is. And so again, take a look at things. You don't want it to be enough to get some flavor out of it, but not overwhelming. That's not a great answer, but
No, a half teaspoon, maybe a teaspoon, because there's a teaspoon of caraway.
yeah,
That's a good guideline for a total of how much
yeah,
spice you put in the quart.
yeah.
So a lot of the online sauerkraut, vlogs say cover it with like a leaf of cabbage.
Yeah.
Do you have to not do that when you're using
I don't,
a lot?
yeah, I don't bother with it, because what happens is everything floats up. If you look at those jars back there, you'll notice that there's the liquid on the bottom and the cabbage is all floating kind of, up. And so, sometimes I've used marbles,
You do wait.
to weight it down, but generally I don't have a problem with it. And some of the sauerkraut, it says, oh, you let it ferment for 3 months. 1 week is pretty good. We like there to be a little bit of a crunch, and it just tastes better. And you're still getting all the probiotic benefits.
And how long in like a basement fridge, how long is it good for?
I have sauerkraut that's in my refrigerator now that's probably, I know it's at least a year old, and we're still eating off of it. I was gonna bring I have these big sauerkraut crocks, and they work great if you're making, but I've got a 10-liter one, and it's big, but this is gonna be good for you guys. Richard.
I learned a couple of things about making sauerkraut. 2% salt and 2 weeks.
Okay, and if you look at my recommendation here, I've got a 3.6% brine. The more salt you use, the longer it's going to take to ferment. The less salt, the quicker. And so, but the less salt, the greater the likelihood that it may go bad on you. Basically, what we're trying to do is we're trying to control the rot.
So, anytime after what, 3 days, 3
Yeah,
weeks?
3-4 days, depending. So if it's sitting, on your kitchen counter and your kitchen is cold because it's cold outside, it's going to take longer. If it's 95 degrees outside and it's hot, it's going to go faster.
Can I open it up and taste it?
100%. Please do. Yeah, taste it along the way, Norma.
Can you freeze dry sauerkraut?
You can.
Contain all the good stuff?
You can freeze dry sauerkraut. When you reconstitute it, though, it's gonna be kind of slimy and mushy. It's not gonna, you know, it's like when you freeze dry meat and they say, oh, you can't even tell the difference. Oh, yes, you can.
How much would you have to eat every day to get all the benefits?
You know what, that's the best question of the night. How much do you have to eat? Teaspoon?
Every day.
Not much. So for example, if I say we're gonna plant some seeds. So Kim is gonna go out and he's gonna plant the carrot seeds. And he says, okay, Kyle, I did it. Carrot seeds planted. Next day I say, hey Kim, here's some more carrot seeds. Go plant them. Well, where should I plant them? Oh, same place. And then the next day, oh, same place. It's like, no, this is a live, growing, multiplying culture. And so it's kind of like if you're spinning the basketball on your finger, go that way. Anyways, how often do you need to keep spinning it once it's going? Not so much, right? Initially, you know, to get it going, you know what I'm talking about? Anyways, and so the point is you just keep it going. What happens if you miss a day? No big deal. Because what you're trying to do is you're trying to establish an environment. And in the gut, there's a couple factors to consider. One is the probiotics, that's what you're getting with this. The other is a prebiotic. Prebiotic is indigestible fiber. And a lot of the research now is suggesting that the prebiotics are more important than the probiotics. Prebiotics is the scaffolding, if you will. And so not to be too gross, but if you eat lots of fiber, your poop's gonna be nice and light and fluffy, not like bricks. I had a patient years ago, she swore to me up and down that she's only had 3 bowel movements in the last 6 months. And I thought, no way. And I said, what do you eat? She says, oh, the only thing I could eat is cheese. And I thought, well, that's constipating. And so the point is she ain't gonna grow any probiotics in that, you know, brick. And so the point is prebiotics. You know, if you focused on whole natural foods with an emphasis on high fiber, your diet's gonna be a good one.
I have heard that, the probiotics change as it ferments, and so you eat some when it's young and as it gets older, and you're gonna get a variety.
Yeah, because there's a
from the
battle.
same batch.
And so she said she's heard that the probiotics change, the profile changes, you know, and it's kind of like a bell-shaped curve, you know, one feeding over the other, and it's true. And so we want a multiplicity of variety of probiotics.
Will
Julie.
it ferment faster if you put a little bit of an older batch in?
So to repeat Julie's question, will it ferment faster if you give it a start, if you give it a little boost? And yeah, it can, but it's not necessary. How many of you have ever gone and picked some grapes and noticed that white film on the outside of the grapes?
Yes.
Lactobacillus, right? And so all of these vegetables come with bacteria already on them. And so I didn't add anything to these ones back here. Like sourdough bread. So we've got to get going. Claudia.
What kind of, do you get a special cabbage, do you get organic cabbage, or? do you
Yeah.
prepare?
I tell people the best that you can find and afford. So when you're buying your vegetables, quality, right? And so for us, yeah, we buy organic. You know, Terrell's has just been sold, right? So now it's Ridley's. I don't know if we would go there and we would buy these scrap boxes. Anybody else get a scrap box? And so we'd pay, was $8 and then it was $10. And it's all the food that doesn't sell, the produce that is expiring. And the interesting thing is at least usually half of it is still good. The other half goes to the chickens or the pigs. But it's mostly organic, because the organic doesn't sell as fast as the other. And so, you know, for $10 we get, you know, 20 pounds of organic, you know, vegetables.
Do they do that now when you work with?
I don't know, we
The
haven't,
price went sky high, it's $25 a box.
for the,
I'm not, I was very disappointed.
Maybe we need to complain.
and I noticed different employees, a lot of the employees there are not there anymore.
They said that many of them, they came back or had the opportunity, but then they had just more people. Cause we asked that same question.
Okay,
So they won't tell you the truth, probably.
You wanna repeat that, we didn't hear.
Well,
No, let
let Kyle repeat it.
so the question is, we're talking about the new grocery store and we're not getting answers. So I don't know, and, you know, and we're still gonna shop there, you know, most likely, but change,
I have a question. So I have a daughter in another state who's been doing carnivore for a year.
yeah,
And against my better advice. But, her very expensive coach told them a few months ago, you've gotta start adding sauerkraut to your diet.
yeah.
I've been telling you all for years that you can just eat meat. But if they're adding sauerkraut and they don't have prebiotics, cause they're not eating fiber, is it gonna even work?
And so here's the thing with the carnivore diet. Her question is she's got a daughter that has been doing carnivore for over a year, and how is she getting the fiber? Well, the high fat or oil content kind of lubes the things, and so they're not getting super constipated. Some of them are. I tell people carnivore is short-term success, long-term disaster. I'm working with patients who have done carnivore who are now battling colon cancer. Vegan diet, short-term success, long-term disaster. You know, we need to eat whole natural foods all the way across the food spectrum.
What would be a good prebiotic source that someone could take along with their carnivore and their sauerkraut, so that they could still feed the sauerkraut probiotics? Is there something that you could take? Would psyllium do it, or
That's, I mean, maybe to a degree. I mean, I'm gonna say sweet potatoes is a great one, and, you know, here's the challenge with these extreme diets. And hopefully not to offend too many of you, but maybe some of you. It's almost like a mental illness. I mean, I'll tell you, veganism is a mental disorder. The people that are just so locked into it, and carnivore, you know, to a degree, they become very, very fearful of not following the strictness. And there's consequences. I mean, I've been working with people for over 40 years, and I see the diets and the patterns, and so, anyways, we got to get moving. So here's what I'd like to do. I need some brave soul that can grate some carrots. Are you familiar with these mandolin type things? This one's kind of cool. It's got 3 settings, and we're gonna set it on probably setting number 2, and we need somebody that could, basically, what you do, you can see that, and it's really safe until you get to the end, so you're gonna wear a glove on your hand. And so, grating some carrots, we need some onions cut, we've got the cabbage going here, and I've got some, I got latex gloves. If you've got a problem with latex, don't put these on. The other thing that I bought 5 of these sauerkraut pounders, and if you'd like to purchase one, $14.99 was my cost. I'm going to sell them for $15, so I'm going to make a penny off of you. But they're nice, and these are nice in the sense that this will fit into a you know, a wide mouth lid real easy. This will fit into a narrow one. And so what we're going to do is we're going to get all of our ingredients ready, and then we're going to mix them. We're going to do spices, and we can just have kind of a consensus, and then it's going to be a matter of stuffing your jars. And so I use the little funnels here, and you put the sauerkraut in there, and then you're gonna you know, pack it down. Don't be too voracious. Don't break the jar. But
How far are we filling the jar with the?
you're gonna fill. Good question. You're gonna fill the jar probably about 1 inch to the top.
Before pounding.
Before pounding?
No, after pounding.
Pounding, okay.
Because you're gonna pound down, then you're gonna add some more and pound down. And I hope I've got enough for everyone. We'll see. Okay. Okay. So this is gonna go on your,
Right here.
correct.
House, so you need the jar, you need the airlock lid. Some sort, and those are really the tools.
Yeah, you know what, and I've cut
About some of these.
branches off trees. I